Welcome to the Heartful Healing Hub podcast. I am Deanne, your host, frequency intuitive and energetic healing guide, here to hold space for transformation through sound, energy, and sacred storytelling. You're listening to Healed and Whole Stories of Remembering, a special series where I sit with women who've walked through deep health challenges and emerged transformed. These are conversations that are sacred, heart to heart, soul to soul, filled with truth, resilience, and the power of coming home to yourself. May these conversations inspire your own inner healer to awaken. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast. Today, I am very excited to be sitting here with Tania. So what I will do is read her bio to introduce her properly. Tania is a hypnotherapist, Reiki master, and sound healing alchemist. She has the calling and deepest soul aligned purpose. Her calling in deepest soul aligned purpose is to help 1 million women. That is awesome. To unlock their personal power and step into their divine destinies. She guides women to embody unapologetic confidence and unstoppable power by helping them rewire deep subconscious blocks, regulate their nervous system, and cleanse their energy. That is absolutely fabulous. I love what you do. So welcome, my dear. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so honored and excited to be here and chatting with you.
Yeah, awesome. So the stage is yours whenever you are ready to tell us what you are wanting to share with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dan, you and I had such a great conversation about just like health issues and chronic pain and things like that. And I really wanted to talk a little bit more about that today and share a little bit more about how I kind of brought my own journey back from that and how a lot of the subconscious patterns, what I found is like a lot of the chronic pain issues that come up are actually related to stock trauma, to subconscious patterns and blocks in your body, to dysregulated nervous systems, which so many of us have, and how that's such an important part of the healing journey. I actually had breakfast with a friend today who was talking about how she has like TMJ, I forget what it stands for, but when you get like the jaw pain and stuff like that, and how she's tried a lot of different things. And I was sharing the same thing with her because I'm so passionate about this, but about how like a lot of the chronic pain issues, a lot of times we'll work on the physical stuff and we'll go to like 100 doctors and we'll try to do all the tests and spend so much money on getting our testing done and getting gaslighted by all of the doctors in traditional medicine, only to not have an issue, not have a solution, and then, or to find a solution that only partly works, like a little bit. I know you can resonate with that too.
Yep, totally.
And so, a big part of it is, of course, there's always a space for traditional medicine, but like there's a lot of things in terms of functional medicine and lifestyle things that you can definitely do. But a lot of it goes hand in hand with really getting your nervous system to a place where you feel safe, where you feel regulated, because chronic pain is really your body literally just like holding all of that tension. Right. So you need to kind of do that work to release and let that go. And the same is true with your subconscious blocks. Like a lot of that, a lot of our blocks and patterns, they form before the age of 8 because of early childhood trauma. Now it can be a big trauma or a small trauma, but that's really what ends up manifesting in the long term as like burnout, chronic anxiety, ADHD, a lot of chronic pain issues. And for some people, even can, depending on how long and how bad it's been, it can result in cancer and other diagnoses as well. So I'll pause there and see if you have any questions for me, if any of that resonated. What are you thinking, Diane?
Well, as we've discussed before, prior, yeah, everything you're saying is totally resonating with me. So my question would be, how did you come to realize all this, and your personal journey till now,
Yeah,
if you want to
yeah.
share that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So for me, honestly, like I've always I grew up in like a South Asian household. I'm Pakistani. I grew up in Pakistan. We kind of had a very atypical, like Asian tiger mom, if you can call her that, right? Like very high achieving household. My sister's, a doctor, and my brother's in finance. There was always like a path. And so I always was the person who like worked really hard, but from a very young age, I had a lot of chronic health issues. From a very young age, gosh, even when I was like a couple years old, I was always the one who had like all the chronic ear infections. When I was in middle school, high school, I had like an idiopathic, which just means they don't know the reason after a shit ton of medical tests. An idiopathic cough that took me out of school for a long time. There was always like health things. And so over the years, a lot of that, I didn't realize that was like a lot of that was stress related, They sent me to therapy when I was really young, but that was a lot of stigma associated. So even though I had done some of the early therapy when I was like maybe 14 or 15, I basically just sat there and didn't engage because I thought like I was crazy or something was wrong with me at a very young age, And so for me, really, the big part of this journey started in, 2018. So about 8 years ago. I had finished my MBA, like I said, very high achiever, went to school in New York. Then I, was working in finance. I had the lifestyle of someone who worked like a lot and prioritized work above everything. Very anxious, super stressed out. Finished my MBA in LA, moved to the Bay, and I was working in a tech company. And about a few months in, I just got really sick. And we just could not figure out what was going on. And I was in and out of at the time I was part of Kaiser. I was in and out of the doctor's offices, like, gosh, maybe like 3 to 4 times a week. Things got really bad. My job ended up telling me that I was a liability because I would be like banging into walls. I was like very functional. I lived 5 minutes from work, but they're like, you cannot come into the office anymore. Everything was just like, I had 26 different diagnoses because again, they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I was just hearing really horrible, awful things. I thought like life was about to end. I was pretty, trigger warning, I was depressed and like suicidal at the time as well. Ended up in a chronic pain clinic because again, idiopathic, could not figure out what the reason was. And eventually they started to figure out some of it. I got on some medication. We started kind of working on the nutrient deficiency and stuff like that. But like even the early things, even when I was like throwing all the spaghetti at the wall, nothing was really like working. Like I said, everything would work a little bit, like just enough for my head to be a little bit less foggy, just enough to feel like 5% better, but really nothing was working so much. And so at that time, I started to, I was like reading up on everything because I had experienced so much medical gaslighting at that point. And everyone was telling me, oh, I'm in range, everything's fine, everything's fine. So I was just like deep in Facebook groups and on like just people's books and stuff like that, like learning all about chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases, and ended up reading. I remember I read a book and this woman was talking about what she called the triad. And she said with a lot of chronic health issues, you have one of two, like one leg of the triangle is either it's environmental, meaning like mold or whatever else, right? Or it is genetic. The second is gut related. So you have to have leaky gut or whatever, right? Some kind of gut related issue. And the third prong, and if you do not have the third prong, it probably won't trigger, is chronic stress. And I read that and I was like, well, okay. What does that mean? What does it mean to be chronically stressed? What does that even mean? I don't know, right? And so it took me a long time to finally realize, like, okay, I had gone through full burnout mode at that point, and that like manifested in very dramatic ways in a chronic health condition for me. But that was sort of the beginning of my journey where I was like, okay, I guess maybe this is it. And ended up like, this is like when I first joined Instagram, even though I refused to get on Instagram for a long time, but I finally did. And I remember I was like swiping and I ended up on Jay Shetty's page, and he was like, he had the most calming voice. I didn't know what he was talking about. I wasn't paying attention. I was just like feeling very like calm when I would listen to him. And then that's how I got into like meditating. I started learning about stress and nervous system and all that stuff. And so over these last 8 years, it's been a lot of like, honestly, start and stop, and a lot of coaches and a lot of people saying like, oh, this is the only way, you know? But like trying a lot of things and figuring out what suits me and my body. And a big part of that was, you know, everything was like peeling another layer, another layer, another layer. And you know, it was a couple years ago where I kind of came across both, like I had been working on stress, but didn't really have the language around nervous system stuff. And then kind of understood the law of that. And then on the subconscious mind side, you know, ended up a couple years ago, just like getting into hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, and then like getting into Tony Robbins' world and getting certified myself. So kind of eventually the path led me there. But yeah, that was a starting point. It's like when I read that book and I understood what they said about the triad and chronic stress. And I was like, well, I have these other two, so she must be saying something accurate. Maybe I have the third too, right? And so yeah, that's how I ended up here and how I found out about all of this, and it like blew my world open.
So that's when you decided that you wanted to actually help other people, I guess, and you know, become a hypnotherapist yourself and a Reiki master, and so that's the journey that you took. That
Yeah,
took
I mean,
you to those.
it started honestly early on, and you know, I kind of stayed in corporate for a while after that. And part of it is for the reason that many of us experience, which is imposter syndrome. So once I started to kind of like, my head started to clear, I started to feel better. I went from being like honestly a shell of myself, and that's what I was a shell of myself, to becoming like really high energy and wanting to like do everything and try everything, right? But I remember I was in therapy and I was talking to my therapist, and like I had the courage, I don't know why, one day to say to her, I was like, I really want to help people who have chronic health conditions. And she said, well, why don't you? And I said, well, who am I to do it? You know, I was like, I think I know what they need because I went through it. And there's like there's yes, the physical side and the nutrition and whatever, but there's also the emotional side. And honestly, there's the financial side also, because this stuff is a money drain, like figuring this stuff on your own. There's like no community. There's no sense of like, it feels so lonely. You don't know where to go. It's very confusing. It's overwhelming. There's not enough information and there's too much information at the same time somehow, you know? And I was like, I didn't know, like, it's so much, it's overwhelming. And so, and you're going to all these people, we've talked about this before, like who are supposed to be the experts, the doctors, supposed to be the experts who are supposed to help you figure it out. And you just go by blind trust because that's what you're supposed to do. Societally, we've been conditioned to believe that. And so when they're telling you all this information and saying, oh, you're in range, you're feeling good, blah, blah, whatever, and you're like, no one's looking at the whole person, but you're supposed to trust this person who's telling you that. So you do. And you know, you might not even get to the point where you actually like go talk to someone about it, or go seek out information or read a book or go on a blog or go on Facebook. Like that would require you to choose actively to distrust a person of authority that you've been told to trust for such a long time. In my case, my sister was also a doctor, so that added some additional fun complexity for me. But yeah, I had that imposter syndrome, and so it was me. But that was when the seed got planted. And about 6 months after that, funnily enough, I was in Thailand with my sister, had my first ever Reiki and tarot session. And this woman who was a tarot card reader said, like, you know, you have a mission, you have a calling, you have a purpose. And she's like, you already know what it is. You know what the first step is. Like, you need to just jump. And so I just took that. I was like, I knew exactly what she was talking about at the time. And I just took the first, that was my first step. And then from there, every step has like led to the next thing. You know, I'm one of those people, like, I'll try something and it works really well on me. And you always work with like old versions of yourself. So I knew that since it worked for me, it would work for people that I work with.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of like each thread led me to the next thing. It's really funny because you'll see people in my old life, they'll be like, he used to be a finance bro. I used to smoke a pack and a half a day, drink a lot of Red Bull, and, you know, like never sleep, party a lot, whatever. And they're like, it's night and day. And I was like, I know it looks like night and day, but it wasn't like, it is, but there was a lot of like rebuilding trust with yourself, with your intuition, with your body, like learning things, being willing to be really uncomfortable in all of the feelings and the emotions and the modalities, being in a lot of things where people are doing stuff and you're like, this is some woo-woo stuff. Like, do I even believe in any of this, you know? But being open to it, because you hit a low point. Like I hit a very rock bottom, right? And so unfortunately for a lot of us, like that's where we need to go. We need to hit really rock bottom. To get, we talk about this in neurolinguistics, like you have a leverage point. You need to hit, the pain needs, most people are motivated by the pain or pleasure. The pleasure meaning that the future has to be so compelling, or the pain has to be so bad in the future that one or the other causes you to propel forward. Nothing else is going to cause you to propel forward. It's going to be, that's why you see so many, alcoholics and stuff too. It's like, you think they've hit the bottom, but there's still more bottom. And only when they hit the absolute bottom, they're like, because change can happen in an instant if you get enough leverage, And so that's a lot of what we, do in hypnosis is like, how do we give you, unfortunately, sometimes we give you the pain in your mind to get you to the point where change is like, happens like that, instead of having to experience it in your actual life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, a lot of times it is the fear of the pain or the pain itself that will be the biggest driver for us to make any changes.
Yeah.
Because just the pleasure, it doesn't seem to be enough. It has to be like, there has to be this immense pain or the fear of, for us to be driven to do the changes. And speaking of changes, people in your world were saying, like you're like night and day, but it didn't happen overnight. So maybe from what they knew you before to what they know you now is night and day. But again, like I said, that didn't happen overnight. It just a gradual change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and to answer your asking, so it's, if you think about, if you take like 100 people, like maybe 15 to 20 will be motivated by like a really compelling future, which is actually still pretty high. But 80 to 85% of people are motivated by like significant pain, or to your point, the fear of a very painful future, right? And when I say pain, I mean, again, you're giving them the fear of like a lot of times it's not even about you. It's not even pain for you. It might be like, let's say you have kids or you have whatever, you have a partner. It's like when the pain becomes really real is when it becomes real about people that you love, right? Like how your behavior, like if you're the person who's going to cause pain to someone you love, like if you, like again, if you take the alcoholic example, if you're someone who's like, if the pain got so bad that you have like ruined your kids' lives and whatever, that's the point that's like, unfortunately, the strong enough motivator that you're like, okay, that is not acceptable. Because if it's just you, we find enough reasons and justifications to self-sabotage ourselves out of it. And we're like, okay, it's going to be fine. And so what if this happens or that happens? Like, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is unfortunate, but I mean, it's unfortunate and it's not, because I mean, you still have to do it for yourself. I mean, like you're talking about alcoholism, and I've been around enough people in my life that were unfortunately alcoholics, and it's you can't do it for others. I mean, that just goes for anything. If you're not doing it for yourself, you're not going to stick with it. So
no, and it's a big in hypnosis and NLP, we do something called an ecology check, but really like the point is like all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. By that I mean, like, even if I'm facilitating or guiding you, someone's guiding you, in the end, it's your suggestions, your words, your thoughts that will cause the change. And so you're right. Like if you're, like for example, I had a client recently who quit vaping, but it's like, if it's only because he wanted to do it. Yes, he wanted to do it to be a better father and to live longer for his kids. But if he wanted to do it because his kids wanted to do it, his wife wanted to do it, like it would not have landed. It would not have worked. But because he wanted to do it, he quit in like an hour. Right. Yeah. But so it really is about that. It's like you have to want to do it for yourself, but like the motivation reason usually is outside of you, because again, as human beings, for whatever reason, we seem to care less about ourselves than we do about like people we love, Yeah.
No, totally. All right. So any modalities or tools or inner wisdom that you feel helped you most in your journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think there's been different things at different points. I think that's the other thing is like, our brain and ourselves, we love things that are familiar, which is great. That's great to have routines and patterns, or like I like to say rituals, because I think rituals makes it seem more special and connective. Those are always great, but things change at different times. Just like, your body changes, everything changes. It's like you have to be, I think we get so stuck on something and then we think like, oh, it's not working anymore. It's not working anymore because we shed our skin. Like we change as human beings every single day. And even our skin, which is our biggest organ, it fully sheds off every 2 years. You no longer have the skin. So you are 100%, every single cell of your body is completely different every 2 years. So you cannot expect something that worked like for a very long time. Like if you think about it, like a meditation that maybe you're someone who's like, this type of meditation worked great. Now you're further along in your practice. You don't, you need something a little different. And so I think it's being open to different things. And that's why I love kind of combining modalities and pulling different things. But I would say for me, in the early days when I was like very burnt out, very anxious, like just the idea of even sitting for like a 30-second or a minute in stillness or meditation or even taking a walk in nature without my phone, like was a lot. It was alarming, So I think it really depends on the stages you're in. But for me, I think EFT tapping is really special. My clients absolutely love it. They're obsessed with it. But also this year, I'm really into Chinese medicine and acupuncture. It's just a way of life, as like a lifestyle. But basically how it works is EFT tapping. You might have seen some videos where people are kind of like doing these like funky things where they're tapping on their head and it just looks silly. But what's happening is that in our bodies, whether you go by Chinese medicine, you go by yogic philosophy, right? We all have prana, we have life force, we have chi, whatever you want to call it, right? And we have what is called these energy lines or energy centers. We have these meridians that are running through our body, right? So what EFT does is kind of
currents for those who don't. Yeah.
Electrical current. Yeah, that's good. So it's basically EFT tapping kind of is like acupressure for those points, right? And so how it works is essentially you have different points in your body that are like, there's some over here on your forehead and the side. There's like a bunch of videos on this. And I can point you to some resources as well. But EFT, what you'll do is essentially you will get into the emotional state of whatever the pain is. And then you will start with sort of a more negative statement, then move to a more neutral statement and move to a positive statement, right? And so what that does is it kind of gives you enough. Different people do it differently, but I find that kind of gives you enough of a bridge because a lot of people say like, hey, affirmations feel fake and whatever, right? And it's because the reason that feels like that is because if you're emotionally like feeling upset or angry or frustrated and then you're trying to say a positive statement, those two things, it's like, it's not like, it doesn't go together. It doesn't feel right? But doing EFT where you're kind of bridging and as you're tapping and the energy is clearing, so that emotional stuck energy is changing. The emotional state is changing. So as you move to, for example, a more neutral and more positive state, then the language and the state can match up. State is everything, right? In NLP, we talk about state or like state meaning your physiology, your energy body, how that is, because that can change anything. We think about someone who's like feeling very depressed, like think about how their body and their state is. Like they're usually kind of low energy, their body's kind of fatigued, their shoulders are slumped, their head is banged down, right? But someone who's confident and you see them walking into a room, their shoulders are high, the head's held up high, the energy is open, the posture is open, they're taking long regulated breaths, right? All that is like a 2 millimeter difference between being here and being here, right? That change in your state and your physiology is going to change everything. And so imagine pairing that with positive statements that feel affirming. And then to supercharge it, you can actually do it in a mirror, which combines another modality, which is mirror work. So you can do mirror and EFT tapping together. And what you're doing is, a lot of us hate looking at ourselves in the mirror. So you're also kind of going through the cringy discomfort of that and talking to yourself in the mirror, but you have a real person, and that is yourself. You're looking yourself in the eye, you're connecting with yourself emotionally, you're changing your state, you're using positive language or negative to neutral to positive language, and it like literally will change the game. And you can do that just for like 2 minutes and it will change everything. So that's one of my favorite tools. I also really love hypnosis because, as I was talking earlier, it's like you can make change in an instant. Why is that? It's because when you think about the brain, we think that like, we're saying things that are like, let's say you have a thought, you're basically thinking and talking logically. Well, only 5% of our thoughts and our ideas are coming from the logical conscious brain. The remaining 95% come from your subconscious mind, which is all the patterns and rooting that you kind of created at a really young age, up to the age of 8. Up to the age of 8, your brain was like, think about it, when you were really young, you were just all imagination and goofiness and playfulness and fun, right? Because your brain was 100% subconscious, which also means
it was a sponge.
It was a sponge, exactly. It was a sponge. So everything that your parents said came in. All of their beliefs about money came in. Everything your teacher said came in. Every experience you had, every time you got bullied, every time, like, if you had any trauma, big T trauma, small T trauma, anytime your parents like decided to leave you at home and you felt abandoned, that all became part of your experience. And that has formed the foundation. If you think about the house, foundation of your house, it has formed the foundation of who you are as a person. Yeah. And from there, you created these, what we like to call filters, right? It's kind of like taking on a pair of sunglasses. Your sunglasses are colored by this foundational experience you had. Every experience you have after that is just a reaffirmation of that. Your brain has a system in it called a reticular activating system, an RAS, whose entire job, it's kind of like a lighthouse. Its entire job is like to scan your environment to prove that what you believe is true. And the beliefs that it's proving are your subconscious beliefs. So if you believe, making money is too hard for me. If you believe that, people always leave me, or all men are like, whatever it is, right? If you have these beliefs, your brain is always scanning. The RS is always scanning to believe that's true, because your brain likes to prove that you are a truthful person. So that's what it's doing. It's doing its job. It's doing a great job, So what we do is like, we think that, oh, I'm so intelligent, I'm making a decision. Like the best example I like to give is like, let's say you decide, hey, I want to, I hate talking about weight loss, but let's say you say, I want to get on a diet on Monday and I'm going to start eating salads every day. And then day 1, you do great, day 2, day 3, and then it all drops off. Why? Because you made a decision to say, a conscious decision to say, I'm going on a diet. But subconsciously, you might have an unhealthy relationship with food. You might have your mom having said, a bunch of things about food in the house. You might have body image issues. You might have had an ED when you were younger. You might have had, like, if you experience assault or anything when you were a child, you might not feel safe in your body to be able to drop the weight. Like there's a million reasons that are all subconscious that will affect. And imagine your 5% of your mind making the decision, I'm going to go on a diet, trying to compete with that. That's insane. It's not possible, right? That's why you keep trying and failing. And it sucks because you feel like you're a failure all the time, And so that's why you have to go underneath the subconscious, and you need to address it on a subconscious mind level, because instead of spending years trying to make these disciplined changes, you can do it in an instant. If you get under the root, you figure out, you remove the emotional charge, you clear the subconscious beliefs, and you implant more positive suggestions. And so hypnosis NLP is like so powerful at doing all of that.
Yeah, that is very true. That is awesome. I mean, I'm glad that you found that for yourself, and now you get to share it. So that's amazing. What do you feel that, I mean, obviously you've shared a lot already, but do you feel there's something specific that the whole journey has awakened within you?
I think there's the part of me, on a very simple level, I will say it's like awakened my calling, to do the work that I do.
Yeah.
But on a more, I guess, like deeper level, for me, I do believe that we all have to go through certain experiences, right? We have to, of course, it's free will, but there are things that are written for you that have to happen in order for your life to take certain paths, And so for me, like, I had to go to the point where I experienced chronic health issues and burnout, and like, where I have brought myself back from the brink and had to like learn all these modalities and change things and regulate my nervous system, because it's led to, yes, a part of me that works with women doing the work that I do, but also like being the person who now takes all that and like has to change a lot of the generational patterns in my family and things as well, And so I think it's really opened my eyes to see a lot of that. And also I think that honestly, the biggest thing is causing me to question, because we get so used to, like we were talking about earlier, like thinking, okay, this is what authority, right? A doctor, a boss, a parent, like this is what they're saying, and therefore it must be true because this is the person of authority. So it's not just in the medical field, it's in every area of our life.
Yep.
And so we get so used to, because we're conditioned to believe this person is older than us or smarter than us or, you know, whatever it is. They have more money than us, and therefore they must be like super wise with, you know, whatever it is. And so we don't even think about questioning any of that. And so I think that's been the biggest thing, is like really learning to break out of my cultural conditioning around some of that stuff and thinking about, okay, like what do I really think? What do I really want? And how do I want to exist? How do I want to move through this world? You know, how do I want to, not only what impact do I want to make, but like, if, you know, it's not about being like cynical and saying, hey, is what this person's saying true? It's really more like, what do I believe to be true? And is my belief of what to be true, is that because like you learn to see things in a more objective fashion, you know, as opposed to just because someone told you that and they're of authority. Now, of course, that requires you to have done the work to clear your own patterns and beliefs and stuff like that, because a lot of times we make decisions from our like wounded place where you still have these beliefs and patterns, right? But not just like blindly accepting someone of authority, especially in areas that matter, right? If, for example, another example would be like, let's say you have kids or you want to have kids and you've been taught, oh, your kids need to go to college, they need to do A, B, and C, they need to like live this kind of lifestyle, they need to do whatever. Why? Because that's your parents' beliefs and their parents' beliefs and their parents' beliefs before that, and societal beliefs, right? That's not true anymore. How many successful like young adults do we see who have had, you know, amazing lives? Success being either financial success or success being they actually are just like really peaceful, happy, well-adjusted human beings. And they never went to college. Maybe they left, you know, a lot of that has changed. Why? Because they're not just following what they were conditioned to follow, and their parents allowed them to explore and be the authentic self. I like to say that we're not wiring ourselves, we're like literally unwiring. We're like having to unlearn the patterns. It's not about learning new patterns, but unlearning the patterns. So like, how about we do a little bit less damage to start with, you know, and we give our kids and our generation sort of like more of that freedom to be who they are and express who they are without all the shame and the fear and the, like, you shouldn't have to learn to go through the forgiveness path to get over your anger and get over your trauma. Like, how about we not even let it get to that point, you know? And so I think we're doing a lot of unlearning in society right now, which is amazing, but I don't think we even need to get to the point of learning all this stuff in the first place.
Yeah, it's taking back our power. And just like you said, you know, we've been taught from babyhood, basically, that, you know, you have to give your power away to medical doctors, to the, you know, lawyers and our parents and teachers and everybody else. But we are never taught to listen to our instinct, to listen to our inner voice, and to trust ourselves to know what's best for us. So absolutely.
Yeah, I think that exactly. And I think that intuition and the inner wisdom, and, you know, like there's been such a stigma around women too, you know, like we really hyper masculinized it, and like, oh, you have to work this hard, you have to be like this, you have to always be striving, you have to always be whatever. And so alongside, sure, you can like be a high achiever and you can do really well and not have to do it that way. And also alongside that is with trying to be the way that men are programmed to be, because their bodies are different, the hormones are different, we also break, like women, you know, men don't have womb space, they don't have the same kind of inner, you know, divine connection, intuition, and trust in the same way, you know. Hopefully they build it if they're like self-aware human beings, but it's not naturally there. We have a lot of natural gifts as women that we forget, or we rather disconnect from, we numb out because we are, you know, doing things in a certain way or trying to be societally the way, again, we're supposed to be, right? And so I think that's been a lot of stuff, and it's actually really hard, because a lot of it is like, it feels, after like a lot of the masculine things are structured, and this intuition stuff and the trust feels so unstructured, and someone's like, okay, like open up your connection to intuition or whatever, and you're like, how? And there's not always a simple how to, like, you know, a lot of it is like trust, and it's a lot more like floaty, soft, you know, skills. But once you have it, there's actually like a lot of power and a lot of connection with that. But there's that in between stage, which is actually really hard, where you're trying to make the transition from like being very structured with it to like, how do I bring back my power and be connected to myself, to my body, to my emotions, to my connection. And we know so many women feel disconnected from themselves, from their body. Like, you know, a lot of them don't even know. Like, oh, so many women, I'm sure you met the same, who feel lost. Like, I don't really know who I am.
Yeah.
You know? And some people learn it earlier on in their life. Some people learn it after burnout or chronic health issues. Some people learn it when they become mothers or when they're living empty nest. Like, there's always a point that comes. It just comes at different points. And so a lot of that is that disconnection from the body and the trust and the intuition. And then the reason why it's so hard to reconnect is because, again, you're going from a very structured, like, this is how you do it, to this thing that feels more ethereal and like, okay, sure, how do you connect to your body? Okay, sure, I guess you like move and you do, you know.
Yeah. But the beauty of this is, from my personal experience and observation, is that it's a matter of just simply being still enough that we remember, because it's in us. Even men can trust their own instincts as well. It's not just about structure. It's just like we're both, like, you know, masculine, feminine, and there's, but it's all in us. And like I said, if you quiet your ego long enough to just be still and listen, it is there. It just needs to be, you know, it's just little amber at the beginning, but the more you're pausing and reflecting, and then the fire, you know, grows and grows, and then you start to remember. It's like, oh, right, I do have power, a lot more power than I thought I did. So
it's true. But I think that initial place of getting to, you know, you were talking earlier about meditation even being hard when you're really in that earlier phase of being really anxious, of being like, you know, because we're so used to, obviously, all like the dopamine hits and the fast and like getting an outcome, rushing to the next place. It's this idea of even pausing. I was with my sister last weekend and she was here, and, you know, she's done a lot of work on herself, and we went out for like a nature walk up at Topanga, and we were up in the Red Rocks, and like, she super excited. So talking. I was like, did you look at the birds? Did you look at the trees? Did you look at, and she was just like, I have a really hard time being in stillness. And I said, you know, I get it. Like, it's hard when you're like a high achieving person and you're always thinking about the next thing, right? When we say like anxiety doesn't exist in the present. It's all either in the past, or you're too worried about the past, or like what happened or what you should have done, or it's very future focused. You cannot be anxious and be present at the same time.
No.
So but the idea of being like present, and like the only way to become and to be is to be in the now. And that part is like very difficult for any gender, any person, for a lot of people, because of our society and culture and the disconnection, right? And so that and then when you're trying to find it, especially if you live in a big busy city and you have a high important job, like, to find that moment is hard. And then a lot of people, obviously, because if we're achievers, it's like we make it harder than it has to be too. We're like, oh, I got to have 45 minutes or an hour of blah, 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 or I got to have a weekend, or I'm going to wait until I'm away, or I'm on a trip, you know, as opposed to like, I can find a moment and take a breath.
Yeah.
Like, how do I simplify this? Yeah.
That's where it often starts. It just starts with just sitting for a second. Even, I mean, you can even do it for 10 seconds and just notice your breath.
Yeah.
And then, you know, maybe an hour or two later, you do that 10 seconds again. Notice your breath.
Yeah.
And, you know, step by step, baby steps by baby steps, and little by little, you start to remember, oh, okay, I can do this maybe for 30 seconds next time.
Yeah.
Or maybe for a minute. And then that's how you start to remember. So that's the beauty of it all.
Yeah. I think like with like an achiever mind, you're kind of like always measuring, you know, like how fast did I get there? Or like, this didn't work.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't work. Yeah. I didn't feel calm or whatever. So you did it for 10 seconds. But it's like, you know, maybe it did work. It didn't work. I think even in the working, there's like subtlety in the working, you know, it's like, if you went from 10 to 10 and a half seconds, it still worked. You know, it might not have worked in the way that you would define it to be working. So I think that's part of it. It's like breaking your own mindset and pattern around like achieving and performing, even in the being.
Yeah.
Right. Or like having certain like standards and expectations for some of that stuff, and letting someone like, and that's really hard. That's hard to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Not for everyone, but for some, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Any last messages that you would like to share with anybody?
Gosh, I guess like my last message would just be that I feel like a lot of us feel very lonely when it comes to experiencing something, or whether it's been an experience or whether you're struggling with chronic stuff. I know when you struggle with chronic health conditions, it's very easy to feel lonely and hopeless, and also like a burden at the same time, which is a very challenging place to be, burden on your partner, burden on your kids, burden on your parents, whatever it is. And with that feeling comes like a lot of hopelessness and stuff like that. And so I just wanted to share that, to say like, I hope that some of the story helped a little bit with that, to show you that that's not the case, and that there's a lot of us out there, and there's so much ease that comes just from like even telling one person, or even like hearing someone's story, even like going and listening to a podcast or like on a Facebook group or whatever. Just even the act of listening, which is why I'm so glad you create spaces like this. Even the act of listening and hearing one other person, if you're open to it, makes you realize that you're not alone to do that. Because there's a lot of healing in community, but there's a lot of healing in knowing that you're not the only person, and you actually have other people who've been through it and come through it on the other side, or whatever that version of that looks like, so yeah, just to kind of keep listening, and at some point, I promise, even if it doesn't feel like it right now, you will start. It's gonna start. It's like you're creating deposits. You're putting deposits back to yourself. You're putting deposits every time you listen, every time you take a breath, every time you do one moment of being. Every time you're doing that, you're creating a deposit, and it's, even if it doesn't feel like right now, like you were saying, the little embers, like it starts to build, and it builds a lot faster than you would think. You can be somewhere you can be in a completely different place pretty quickly. Yes, it might not be tomorrow, it might be a few months from now, it might be a year from now. I don't really know what the answer is for you, but you will get there if you just kind of keep going and doing like the small little things, as small and as micromanageable as possible. And if it feels overwhelming, you haven't made it small enough. Make it smaller. Make it like silly small. If you need to, tomorrow you need to get out of the house and you need to do 100 things, like the smallest thing you can do is just decide to turn on the shower. Not even get in the shower, just turn on the shower. That's how small you want to make it. Make it so small that, because when you decide to turn on the shower, you hear the water running, you'll be like, I'll get in. Once you get in, you're like, oh, I'm already in here, I'm gonna wash my hair. Okay, once you get out, you're like, okay, I gotta dry up now. You know what I mean? Like little by little, just that small thing is gonna take you to the next thing. And you'll have found that will make the embers a lot bigger until the fire is roaring, and then you'll feel amazing after that. So yeah.
Totally agree. I so appreciate you coming in and spending the time with us, because I know time is precious. So thank you so much, and to share your wisdom. And it's been awesome chatting with you today.
Yeah, it was so special chatting with you. Thank you for creating this beautiful healing space. And if anyone wants to chat, I'm sure Dan will put some links down here
absolutely,
just to follow. But again, just keep listening to her pod and keep listening. Facebook groups honestly changed my life. So, if you're on Facebook, which I know a lot of people are not, but Facebook groups is like enough of a game changer to really learn a lot. And just by osmosis, just by watching other people, again, watching stories, hearing stories, listening to what people are doing, taking advice by being a fly on the wall can actually do a lot more than you think as well. But thank you so much for creating this space.
Yeah, no worries. And for sure, all your links are going to be in the show notes, and whatever little message that you want, an extra message. I know that you mentioned your website is
there's a new one coming up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll get all the proper information out there. So
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you, my lady. And I will, I'm so grateful you're here.
Thank you so much, Diane. Appreciate it.
Thank you for spending time with us inside the Heartful Healing Hub. If this story moved you, please consider sharing this episode or leaving a comment. Your words help others find this sacred space. If you or someone you love has a healing journey to share, we'd love to hear from you. And finally, if you would enjoy a gentle way to unwind after listening, visit the show notes to download your free tea ritual guide, Sip and Soften, a soul-soothing gift to nourish your inner healer. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust what has always been within you. And remember, you are whole, you are healing, you are home.